Good evening. You're watching BWTM News. We are going to be updating you with the latest on the Grenfell Tower Inferno in London. So we'll get straight over to things. And our information is coming from The Guardian. So it's a live updates we get every few moments. It says here, let me just go through here. Okay, so I'm just going back and having a look at the story so far. At least 12 people confirmed dead as 200 firefighters tackle the blaze at the Grenfell Tower in West London. At least 12 people have died after a huge fire engulfed a tower block in West London, and the Metropolitan Police have said that the figure is likely to rise. The fire broke out shortly after 1 a.m. on Wednesday at Grenfell Tower in Latimer Road near Notting Hill. The tower is 24 stories high and contains 120 flats. A local council said it is home to over 400 to 600 people. More than over 200 firefighters tackled the blaze at its peak with more than 40 engines. London Ambulance Services said it was called at 1:29 in the morning and 20 crews raced to the scene. Fire ambulances arrived within 6 minutes of the first 999 call. The London Ambulance Service said 68 patients were taken to 6 hospitals across London, 18 of whom received critical care, while a further 10 patients self-presented at hospitals. 18 remain in critical care. There have been multiple reports of people trapped in the blaze. London said it had reached the top of the tower block by early evening on Wednesday. No more survivors are expected to be found. Pockets of fire were still burning on Wednesday evening, and the firefighters will remain on the scene overnight. Witnesses described screams of terror and people jumping in an attempt to reach safety. A baby was caught by a member of the public after being dropped from the 9th or 10th floor, a witness said. Streets around the tower have been sealed off and residents in their homes told to move out. Falling debris also causing nearby flats to be evacuated. The fire brigade has called it to be an unprecedented incident and said there is currently no known cause of the blaze. The Grenfell Action Group, a residents' association, repeatedly warned about the risk of fire in the tower and claimed that a major blaze was narrowly averted after a power surge in 2013. The group said its concerns were dismissed. Experts said the fire spread at unusual speed and raised concerns whether cladding may have been contributing to this. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, declared the fire as a major incident. Transport for London has suspended services on the Circle, Hammersmith and City lines between Hammersmith and Edgware Road. The A40 Westway is closed in both sections. The tower, which was built in 1974, recently underwent a major refurbishment. The Met has an emergency number for anyone concerned for loved ones. The Casualty Bureau number is 0800 0961 233. Repeat, the Casualty Bureau number is 0800 961 233. So just getting more information as it comes in about this event. Just horrific. For those people who don't know, there is a boxing gym, a very famous boxing gym, that is actually the basement of that tower. And basically 2 world champions have come out of that basement gym. which was George Groves and James DeGale. Both of those fighters, are current world champions, and it was at the basement. Dale Youth. I was told Dale Youth Boxing Gym was at the basement of that gym, of that tower. Is the basement in that tower was where both those fighters became, as amateurs went on to become world champions. So absolutely devastating. I'm going to try and find as much more news as possible. Here we've got some more news now coming in. This is 2 minutes ago. Robert Black, the chief executive of Kensington and Chelsea Tenant Management Organisation, TMO, which managed Grenfell Tower, said he's devastated by observations that the cladding on the tower may have added to the speed and intensity at which the fire spread. He told ITV News, "We had no expectation this would happen. We're absolutely devastated by it, and we're trying to work it out. Now, at this stage, I can listen to what people say, but I don't have any information, and therefore it's really difficult for me to comment. We will be working with the fire brigade and the police, and as you can imagine, their ongoing investigation isn't finished yet." Asked whether it was TMO's responsibility to keep people safe, he responded, "Absolutely," he added. "It's a huge responsibility to keep people safe, which we take seriously. What I have to work out, along with investigation and find out what happened, is everything we have done is in line with building control laid down." So there's a tweet that's out there. There's a picture on the tweet, and the tweet says, "We need respiratories, masks, phone chargers," so we put there, "women's toiletries, teen boy clothes 11 to 15, and new underwear." Wow. 29 minutes ago, these are tweets that are coming through and information from The Guardian. More than 100,000 has been pledged to a series of appeals launched to help the people affected by the tower block fire. A crowdfund website says the campaigns for GoFundMe can be viewed here. Okay. The British Prime Minister Theresa May has released a statement up after the fire. "I'm deeply saddened by the tragic loss of the life at Grenfell Tower. My thoughts are with all affected at the emergency services." Okay, 53 minutes ago, news coming in. Following a meeting of the government's Civil Contingencies Secretariat, the Policing and Fire Minister, Nicholas Hurd, refused to be drawn on reports that ministers had been warned that building regulations were in urgent need of updating. "I hope people understand that the priority of the government at the moment is to manage the emergency response, to deal with the security, to deal with lives to be saved, lives to be rebuilt, and to make sure that we've got the support in place for this emergency response. That will then move into recovery phase, and then we will move into a phase where we will seek to answer the questions that people quite understandably have. So we have to really understand what happened here, what went wrong, so we don't find ourselves in this situation, because I don't another night like that." Hurd said that whatever resources were needed to deal with the situation would be made available. "Everyone I've spoken to on the front line, the fire, the police, the ambulance services, resources have not been the issue. People arrived very quickly in good numbers and with the right equipment to deal with the unprecedented situation last night. The government is absolutely determined to make sure that we are there to support the emergency and support services, but also the people who have been caught up in the tragedy." This is from an hour ago from a lady called Lisa Carroll, a journalist. "The Westway Sports Centre near the tower has been converted into an enormous emergency shelter following the Grenfell disaster." Alex Russell, the director of communication for the Westway Trust, the charity behind the centre, said they could accommodate 300 people tonight. The basement sports hall was covered with hundreds of airbeds, mattresses and duvets donated by local people from the early this morning. Russell, speaking as the acrid smell from the still smouldering 24th floor charred shell hung in the air, said, "We've been told to expect people not from the Grenfell Tower, but the houses around the area that have been evacuated. We are expecting several hundred, and we are welcoming people from now." The reception was full of donated essentials, including bread, water, milk, cereal, and other foods. The Westway operation swung into action independently of Chelsea and Kensington Chelsea Council, said Russell. The trust owns the land here, and this morning we just thought we'd have an opportunity to help, and the gym is a large, very safe place. An hour ago, housing activists have called the fire a tragedy that was the combination of governmental cuts, local authority mismanagement, and sheer contempt for council tenants and the homes that they live in. The statement was released by a network that counts among its members the Grenfell Action Group, which had warned about the dangers of such a tragedy and claimed the local council was ignoring its concerns. The statement from the London-wide radical housing network demanded that the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea offered residents secure long-term housing locally. The fire at Grenfell is horrific, preventable tragedy for which authorities and politicians must be held accountable. Grenfell's council tenants were not second-class citizens, yet they are facing disaster unimaginable in Kensington's richer neighbourhoods. This government and many before it have neglected council housing and disregarded its talents as if it was second class. Nationally and locally, politicians have subjected public housing to decades of systematic disinvestment, leaving properties in a state of disrepair and open to privatization. Regeneration, when it has come, has been for the benefit of the developers and buy-to-let landlords who profit from the new luxury flats built in place of affordable homes. Across London, regeneration has meant evictions, poor quality building work, and has given tenants little meaningful influence over the future of their estates. The chronic underinvestment in council housing and contempt for tenants must stop. It is an outrage in the 21st century Britain. Authorities cannot be trusted to provide safe housing, and that people in council properties cannot put children safely to bed at night. The group has called for Gavin Barwell to resign as Theresa May's chief of staff after he was accused of sitting on a report warning about the dangers of fire in high-rise blocks during his time as housing minister. We support demands for a public inquiry into the disaster. There must be justice for Grenfell. We call for the immediate resignation of Gavin Barwell, Theresa May's chief of staff, alongside anyone else whose negligence has contributed to this tragedy. All Grenfell Tower residents must be offered secure, long-term local housing by RBKC, and the estate must be fully rebuilt so that no social housing is lost. This should be not an opportunity for the council to privatise homes or for someone to make a quick buck. Now, Harriet Sherman. Tensions have erupted in clashes with police outside the Rugby Portobello Trust, which is acting as a centre for dispossessed people. The road outside the club was packed with people, some in tears and some wailing. A fracas broke out, apparently over journalists trying to film a distraught woman. Some men moved to protect the woman, and within seconds, a large contingent of police officers were jostling the crowd amid shouting and screaming. One onlooker said that the police and media were acting insensitively towards people whose loved ones were missing following the fire. Emotions are running very high, he said. Superintendent Graham Price told The Guardian it wasn't entirely clear what had caused the disorder, but he reports that people in the local community could not get through on casualty helplines and had congregated at the trust. Some felt the media had been overly intrusive and felt a bit of disorder. Calm was swiftly restored, but the incident was an indication of rising levels of anger and distress among locals. Superintendent Price said the police were dealing with a very complex situation. There are 24 floors in Grenfell Tower and over 200 residents and a lot unaccounted for. This is a very difficult time. Kensington Council has swung emergency accommodation plans into action, with hundreds of stranded families being put up tonight in a local gym. A spokesperson said it had 3 rest centres open during the day for residents who'd lost their homes and residents from neighbouring streets who had been evacuated overnight. The 3 rest centres where emergency housing officers are on hand: the Rugby Portobello Trust, Walmer Road, W11 4EY, St Clement's Church, Tregold Street, W11 4BP, and the Westway Sports Centre, Crowrothan Road, W10 6RP, which will provide emergency overnight accommodation. We will, let me get this article up properly. We will be attempting to house everyone affected, said a spokesperson. Anyone who's affected can call us on a special number 0207 361 3008. Repeat, 0207 361 3008. A short distance from Grenfell Tower, the Tabernacle Christian Centre was inundated with donations of food, clothing, and toiletries. But by 5:30 p.m., it was asked for the public not to bring any more clothing, but said nappies, toothbrushes, women's sanitaries, wear and clean or new underwear for both men and women should be still accepted. We have taken so much, we have to overspill into the garden. We need gazebos now to shelter the donations. Here we go. Here, check this out. Julian Redhead is an A&E consultant at St Mary's and medical director of the Imperial College Healthcare NHS Trust. He was called into work on the night of the fire at Grenfell Tower. I was at home fast asleep when I heard about the fire. My phone went off at about 1:30 to 2 a.m. I'm hazy on that exact time. I was disorientated at first. I grabbed my clothes and headed to the car. My wife had to help me find my car keys. In those situations, you don't wait for anything else. You just go to work. I live almost next door to Grenfell Tower, so I got to the hospital about 15 minutes later. On my way in, I could see the entire block engulfed in flames, and it hit home. It was so clear that something horrific had happened. As I drove, I thought about the types of injuries I could see. I ran through scenarios in my mind. I was preparing myself mentally. Of all the 16 patients we saw, the primary problem was smoke inhalation. 3 of those patients needed critical care. I cannot say too much at the moment, as our concerns is for the relatives and making sure that they know about the injuries first. But when I arrived, the hospital was calm. The triage centre was set up ready to receive patients. All the areas were prepared, and within about 20 minutes, a large group of patients arrived. From then on, the flow of patients was steady, but spread over a long period. The patients were very scared and disorientated, but relieved to be in a safe position now. We talked to them and offered support, but the stories from the night tend to come out later. I was leading my team, so making sure that the right decisions were being made and people were getting the best care. We have a strict system in place. You check people's airways to begin with, check how they're breathing and their circulation. You make sure they haven't lost blood, and look at the neurological status and any other injuries. I'm still in hospital now, and I've been here since 2 a.m. The main thing for me today is to go home and get some sleep. Going home to family and being with them is important as we live nearby. Tomorrow is often when things start to hit home. That is when emotions start to come through. I've seen large fires in my career, but nothing on this scale. I've been involved in lots of major accidents in my career, but it does not make a difference when it's so close to home. When you can look at it in the window and see the tower block, it's a landmark I can see from my house, but it will look very different when I get home. When Paula Lewis, a staff nurse in the NHS, heard about Grenfell Fire Tower, she went to Tesco's and bought many food supplies as she could. Struggling to the affected area with her bags, she flagged down a woman in a car who happened to be heading there with her own donations. The response has been amazing, said Lewis. Completely surrounded by thousands of bags and dozens of volunteers in the basement of the Methodist Church on Lancaster Road. There was nothing here at 9:30 a.m., but all day it's been non-stop. Bedding, clothes, food. Human beings have just come together. It doesn't matter what race or religion you are. There was no sense of overarching official responsibility at the church or at St Clement's, another local church that has been used to makeshift centre. At the Methodist Church, volunteers said there had they had not had official contact about organizing suppliers or people left homeless by the fire. But at the end of the day, churches and halls were overflowing with donations. We're splitting essentials into bags, and then volunteers are going to try and give them to the people who needed them, she said. The community response has been amazing, but it's chaos. No one really knows what they. Steve Apter, Director of Safety and Assurance for London Fire Brigade, spoke before Cundy. He said firefighters have searched almost all the building. They've managed to get to the top floor. They rescued 65 people who were handed over to London Ambulance Service. There were still pockets of fire yet to be extinguished, in particular difficult areas to reach. So there you have it. The Grenfell fire, 12 people have been casualties and have passed away from it. Typically, in these situations, government officials ignore, sweep things under the carpet until something dramatic like this happens. And whoever was sitting on that information and those people that ignored the cries for help, I hope they get well and truly fired and are made accountable to this. So there you have it. BWTM News have covered this story with the Grenfell Tower Inferno. So it's sad. It really is sad. But we know one good thing about this, though. If you can see the positive, is people are coming together, regardless of if they're Muslim or Christian or Jewish or whatever, or they're atheists. They're all coming together, and once again, responding and coming together great as a community. I think these communities like this need to come together and really turn on the government and be asking some serious questions and really get in, and that people that weren't being heard before, the people that were accountable, the people that I'm sure all this was logged. I'm sure all this information was logged over years, and whoever was responsible needs to be held accountable for it. Lives have been lost, and while these ministers and these people who are heads of organizations have been dismissive, their dismissiveness has cost lives. And I don't think they should get away scot-free. In fact, I think they should be imprisoned. The least they should do is be imprisoned and have life imprisonment, because, you know, you've taken away someone else's life. You've taken away somebody's life. You've taken 12 people's lives, or however many lives you've taken. You should be immediately stuck behind bars, and the key should be thrown away, in my opinion, because your decision to be dismissive and just lay it under the carpet, lives have been lost. Your life needs to be taken. You were the head of the situation. You could have said yes or no. You didn't. You need to be removed from your post, wherever job you're in, making money at the moment, and whatever salary you're on at the moment. All the salary you're taking needs to be taken and given. At least 3/4 of that money needs to be given towards the these people's lives. You affect these people's lives, and not only that, you should be thrown behind bars. That's my personal thoughts on it. But those are my thoughts on the Grenfell Tower update live. I hope that we don't. There's no more casualties. Any death is terrible, but just hope that there's no more than 12 people that have passed away, and that justice will be served. Justice for Grenfell Tower, absolutely, and it's not good. It's not good. This is BWTM News. Thanks for watching.